Hi Ben, how are you? So good to see you today.
Very good, Rishi. Thanks for having me. Always great to be able to speak to you.
Yes, certainly I must confess that you are one person who has really inspired me. And we had the opportunity of working together and also having our friendly conversation. So thank you, Ben, for being that wonderful, powerful person you are.
Oh, thank you so much. I mean, I feel exactly the same way. It's been great to work with you. We built a great relationship, and I think we share the same passion for supply chains, but also, ensuring that supply chains can be, better than what they are today, and tackle some of the challenges that we know are there.
Absolutely. A lot needs to be done. And my second confession is that, we did this project in Mint together. And, a majority of the Mint comes from India, for the consumption in various parts in the world. But whenever I
Mm.
have a mint tea, I have a mint chocolate, I do end up remembering you for it because although your business is different, and I also must share with, our viewers who are listening in that, I've also really enjoyed the products of your company, and the
Mm.
toothpaste Sensodyne is probably my favorite. It not only reminds me of the work we do on the ground and what we build with suppliers, but also the impact of products in our
Mm.
daily well-being, care. And I must appreciate that your company stands for a lot of wellness, well-being of people, and we'd love
Mhm.
to hear more about that. And what I was really curious, to have this exchange with you was you've been to India many times and you've traveled quite a bit, and we also met once in Delhi in during your
Mhm.
travels. And share with people, on what are your reflections of being in India, this very complicated, populous country with a lot of people, great food,
Yeah.
but with our own challenges. Share some of your reflections, Ben.
Yeah, fantastic. I mean, first thing to say is that I have really enjoyed visiting India. I remember the first time I was going, it's always a place that I've wanted to visit. But when you finally get there, you don't quite appreciate what everybody tells you from outside India is that it is a attack on every sense. I think in terms of color, noise, smell, heat. In fact, when we went to, especially when we went to the mint fields in June, that was extremely hot. So, but it's just absolutely fantastic, and I've loved every minute of doing it, and loved every minute of implementing the mint programs that we've had with farmers in various areas of Uttar Pradesh. So, yeah, it's been absolutely fantastic. But yeah, an interesting journey as well. I mean, the mint programs that we've done and having to visit India, I would say a big thing for me is, of course, with any project that you do or working with any people, the relationship is the biggest thing. And I feel that relationships are more important in India and working with Indian suppliers and people in India because there's such a strong foundation that you need to put in. Um, a shared level of respect. Um, Also, myself coming from the UK, not to land in India and assume that I know more than the people there about the mint supply chain and about business there, and of course be respectful of the culture and also the ways that you do business as well. But my experience has been if you build those foundations very strongly, you leverage people in India who know the culture, know the markets, know the different religious beliefs, all of these types of things. I think it's really, really important, especially for a non Indian company that is wanting to interact and do some work there. But my experience has been fantastic. And once you get a strong program in place, the other thing is that the acceleration, the progress can be very fast, and you can really start to achieve some things very quickly. And I guess to my final reflection as well, and I always remember this from when we actually went to visit our corporate office in Gurgaon in Delhi. We had a presentation from the head of marketing there, and she was talking about our toothpaste marketing plan. And she was saying, you know, you can't think of India as a country. You need to think of it as a continent because it's as big as a continent. It obviously has a huge population. What is it? 1.4 billion now, I think, largest population in the world. But also, every area of India is so different. Language, culture. She even said that when they film television advertisements for our toothpaste brand, they have to film it in, I think it was 8 or 9 different languages. So this really blew my mind and really made me appreciate just how big and the scale of India, but also the huge opportunity and the huge amount of supply chains that are linked to India is just fantastic.
Yes, yes. No, all the points you share are really great. And it seems like you had very good experience and reflections here. You know,
Mm,
I was in the UK around a month back, and these were my reflections. You know, I realized that there is a lot we can learn from each other, and some of the things you already alluded to. But the whole relationship aspect about it. And I also put a
mm,
video when I was in the UK that in India, if you have to work with suppliers and with your colleagues, you have to build very strong relationships with them. We are still
mm,
a very relationship-oriented society, and we are very
mm,
proud of it. You know, we have a very old history. It runs in thousands of years, and like you
yeah.
said, we have a lot of spiritual, pathways in India, which are also very
Mm,
strong. And we are also, as Indians, wanting to learn more from what is happening in the world. You know, we have a sense of forever learning. But
mm,
sometimes I feel there is tension, you know, with our colleagues in the UK, and I've observed
mhm,
those tensions as well, where the whole contractual way of doing things and the relationship way of doing things don't come together so seamlessly. And I,
mhm,
and I reflected that when I was in the UK. I thought that is something we need to do more work on in
mhm,
bridging two systems in which we operate in. Both systems have
mhm.
their own strengths, and
Yeah.
with UK and India partnering more in trade with our free trade agreement and businesses like yours, which are very strong here in India. I,
Mhm.
I think it's a great opportunity, but tell us more about your own personal things you felt in India, like the food you said. Is there something in particular, which influenced you when you were here?
Yeah, sure. I mean, the food for one. I mean, I'm a huge food fan anyway. I also like to cook myself. I've done a few pieces of Indian food. I wouldn't say how good they were, but absolutely, the food in India was one of the highlights for me as well. Which I think you need to be because suddenly you go from very British food to you visit India and you're having 3 courses of Indian food per day, so you better like it. But yeah, lots of that was incredible, and I think it shows the range of food and agriculture that's also available in India too. But yeah, fantastic experiences from restaurants that we went to when we visited, even the passion that our suppliers and people that we work with have for the food and to show the culture. I remember visiting a supplier who's the head of the company. His wife had prepared our lunch,
Hmm.
and it was just at the time when the fantastic mangoes were ripe, and we had this kind of mango salad with some chili. It was kind of sweet and spicy. One of the most fantastic things I've ever tasted. Um, Even all the way through to some of the Indian sweets that we had as well. We had very nice moments in meetings with suppliers and companies where, because coming back to the point of the relationship, um, there was a moment where some very nice Indian sweets were brought out, and a very nice speech from the company saying that I believe in India that every relationship you want to make it sweet, and therefore they brought out the sweets to be a signal of this ongoing and bring sweetness to the relationship. Which I kind of love that spiritual side is brought into it. In fact, another example I remember. This was actually with Indian colleagues, but this was when I was in Germany on a project. But halfway through our workshop, instead of a bit of an energizer that sometimes you have during workshops. We actually had a moment of doing some meditation and also some yoga, which has never happened to me in a business meeting, but I thought was just so fantastic and so different. So this was a real pleasure for me as well. So yes, and then finally, even stopping on the side of the road to take one of the sugarcane drinks was again this experience, seeing this guy feed the sugarcane into the motor and having this incredibly sweet drink just from the side of the road was a wonderful experience. So everything with India I found really really fantastic, and working with our suppliers there, again coming back to that point on the relationship. I think going there and with the sole aim to really build networks, build relationship, be very humble, and listen to what real experts are telling you, and being able to work together is really fantastic. And maybe finally, Rishi, just going back to your point that you were talking about in terms of maybe sometimes you see that friction and that difference maybe between UK or non-Indian companies. I've definitely seen where some people that we work with in India have kind of understood some of the things that you have to do to work with non-Indian companies, let's say UK or multinational companies. Unfortunately, of course, my experience is working for a long time with Haleon and GSK. Previously to that, I worked at Nestle in the UK. These are big, monstrous companies. And for suppliers, sometimes I feel very sorry for suppliers because we ask so much. There's so much red tape, so many audit checks. But if you kind of embrace these, I think it really puts your foot in the door with a big company and allow you to then build that relationship afterwards. But I do realize it's a challenge sometimes, and the amount that we ask of suppliers to become a supplier to a big multinational company. But I think, my experience is that, the understanding of how you work with those multinational companies is becoming more and more, and it will only build more long-term supply and relationships between India and non-Indian companies.
Of course, of course. And I'm glad you brought out those points. And I think there's learning needed on both sides. And I'm
Mm-hmm.
glad that, companies like yours and the suppliers you work with are more conscious of these tensions and dynamics and making the most of it. And my work is a lot in various supply chains. So we did engage with some of your supply chains, but my work takes me into all kind of sectors and all parts of India. And
Mm-hmm.
we see, uh, you know, the engagements through various lenses. But there's one thing which many companies ask me, and I was in the UK for a month, so many people actually asked me this, and they were very honest in telling me the struggle they've had with dealing with Indian suppliers,
Mm-hmm.
and the overall challenge in making them agree with some of the sustainability commitments which companies have made in the UK
Mm-hmm.
and in Europe. And there are also these new guidelines which are coming in for due diligence and more transparency in the supply chain, going
Mm-hmm.
to the source of raw materials as well.
Yeah.
And India also has its own guidelines, its own structures, but sometimes, these two systems again don't speak to each other too well. So the question
Mm-hmm.
that people mostly ask me, and I'll also push it to you is, what does really work with Indian suppliers, and what would really motivate them or engage them, considering their relationships involved. And you said, this whole family style way of doing business. And
Mm-hmm.
the levers and drivers are sometimes not very visible in
Mm-hmm.
space. And from your experience, because I know you've done some fantastic work with the suppliers and you have created the real change with companies really look for, in terms of engaging with suppliers. Could you give some tips to our colleagues, what really works when you have to
Mm-hmm.
engage with suppliers in India, and what enables them from a
Mm-hmm.
multinational company point of view like yours?
Yeah, I definitely agree. I mean, my experience is for sure that take the mint projects that we've done, or even some due diligence and other pieces of work that we've needed to do in India. I think you need to be very clear with people why you need to do this. I think sometimes we can be quick to say what we need, but then not explain why you're doing it. Which, if you don't have the why, then there's already a lack of understanding as to how important this is, whether it really needs to be done, and whether that's in the Mint project that we had. You know, we had a clear vision of what we wanted to be able to achieve at a high level, but in that, you know, in that slightly different case, by giving a vision of where we wanted to get to with those programs, you also, coming back to the relationship, you want to build that together. I think building that together with our suppliers and partners on the ground allows you to show that you're very open to building on their experience, building on their understanding of the culture, what will work, because there's always a way. There's always a way. You know, with any journey to get somewhere, I could travel this way, this way, this way. There may be 10 different ways to get there, but of those 10 different ways, there's one way that is going to be the best way for everybody that you're working with. So I think building that journey together on a certain program and project, after setting a very clear vision, and whether this comes back to maybe a slightly British culture thing. Sometimes we have this problem where we explain something, but maybe people go, so do you mean this? We can maybe be a bit better to be very, very clear with what we need and therefore why we need it. So I think that's been a big learning, to be very clear on a vision, and also then come together and work as a team to design that journey of how you're going to get there. What's going to be the best way? What's going to, you know, pay respect to the cultural things that you have there, and other parts as well. And then, you know, on due diligence as well, again, I think, you know, I'd come back to yourself, Rishi, on this point. Is, you know, I sit here in the UK. Yes, I've been to India 2 or 3 times and it's been fantastic, you know, a week at a time, but I'm not on the ground there. And I think the fantastic experience I've had with you and the work that you've done is, you had to literally go into the field, into our mint fields. You had to walk up to strangers that you've never met before, who are probably wondering, why is this guy with a happy smile on his face walking up to me and wanting to talk to me? You know, why are these 3 cars turning up with people and this type of thing? And these are, you know, rural farmers that you were speaking to. But also then at the next occasion, you were having a business meeting with a tier one supplier as well, you know, the managing director of a large firm. So I think your ability to be incredibly personable, also to understand, again, the culture in India, be very respectful of people's positions and things like this, but of course be very clear and transparent on what you're looking to understand for the betterment of everyone. That is something. There is no way that I could have done that. I would have done a lousy job if they had sent me over for 1 month to try and do that. But someone like yourself is so valuable to be in market to really understand that, and that is what you need. And I think that would be the same for if we were doing projects in, or we needed assessments or working with suppliers in Brazil. I would recommend to anyone, go local, find experts in the market, and you absolutely are an expert in Indian supply chains, the market, the culture there, and what you delivered for us was a true reflection of the realities of the supply chain, which was so fundamental for us to say, great, now we can set a clear vision of what we want to achieve with these programs. So yeah, that's been my experience of working with yourself, and also working with and what really works, I think, in this particular case in India, from what I've seen.
No, thank you. Thank you. That's really great to hear. And also thanks for sharing your own experience in these engagements. I think you brought in some very good points. I would say from my side, when we do this thing on the ground, and you observed, we are changing roles very quickly, but also getting to the bottom of what the issues are and the problems are, so
Mm,
we can solve them. I think one thing I've always carried in my heart is the humanity, the empathy, and the listening, which I can provide to people, whether they are at the grassroots level or there are these tier one suppliers who are big business individuals. but carrying that humanity and empathy in my heart makes a difference. What we actually do on the ground, and unfortunately you were not with us on the ground, but maybe one day we'll do this
Mhm.
together. But this is a lot of praying and a lot of breaking bread. And we've
Mm.
had some places where we have danced together, and like you mentioned about the mangoes before the call, like plucking mangoes together and being
Mm.
part of the community, when we go and engage with people on the ground, I think makes a big difference. People like
Yeah.
are still city dwellers, we have lived most of our lives in very comfortable situations, and
Mhm.
the Almighty has been very kind to individuals like us. But there are many other individuals who've not had such a good life and they've had some challenges. And I think both you, me, and the colleagues who are listening, our commitment is that whatever change we can bring from our side, from the businesses we are involved in, we create some positive impact for the people where our businesses touch their lives. I think that's our commitment, that is our passion, that drives us, that wakes us up every day from our bed with
Yeah.
that fire we have.
Mhm.
So I've observed that firsthand, and you're very right. In the project we did with you, we probably spoke with hundreds of people, not just a small group of people. And maybe I've never shared with you, but I've shared with some of my colleagues who are close to me. I've always said, whenever I come back from these kind of visits, which are basically business project visits, I always feel something has moved in me as a human being. After speaking to so many individuals, I feel more humbled, grounded, grateful,
Mhm.
thankful. And my first words when I come back home is just being grateful to my family for bringing me all the good things and being around me and the love they
Mm.
provided me. So I think overall, apart from business, I think it makes one more aware of the passing life, which is very fragile, which is
Mhm.
very uncertain. But can we make a difference in whatever life we have, Almighty has blessed us with?
Yeah.
So I see that spiritual and empathetic side very helpful.
Mhm.
I'm sure there are structures around it. But you spoke about the due diligence side of it. And I was talking to somebody yesterday, and they said it's very difficult to do human rights due diligence in India. It's very difficult to convince colleagues or suppliers, and you could do it. And and would there can there are there any reflections from that process? Like, how did you make it happen? I'm sure it was not easy for you as well. There were a lot of
Mhm.
roadblocks. But
Mhm.
human rights due diligence is going to come more often to suppliers in India, businesses in India. Any
Yeah.
tips like how should they engage with this topic, especially a company like yours who's wanting to do stuff in India?
Mhm. Yeah, I think again when we started on the journey, and again coming back to the work that we started a few years ago on our mint supply chain. So we knew that we wanted to do some due diligence there. We really wanted to understand because um, we knew that most of the world's mint comes from natural mint, comes from India. The surplus, maybe the last 10 or 20% comes from the United States. So at a high level, you understand where things come from, but to really do due diligence, I mean, you need to center in on a location of where to go to. And again, myself and the team sitting in a office in London, how are we going to get someone like yourself on the ground to actually speak to people that may be linked to our supply chain? So again, we had to work very closely with our direct suppliers who are providing us mint materials and mint flavors. And of course, they had to do the same thing, that they had to work because they're not directly connected with farmers on the ground. This was a key learning just from the due diligence process. I think the mint supply chain is what, between Haleon and the farmer, maybe 6 tiers deep. You
Hmm.
obviously have the flavor house first, then India-based first processors, you have aggregators, distributors, and then finally you get down to the actual mint farmer who is independently owning a small plot of land, selling his or her oil to a local trader. This is a long way from an office in in central London to a mint farmer in Uttar Pradesh, Lucknow, Barabanki, wherever that else it may be. So you really firstly have to start to work with your closest partners in that supply chain. So so we did with our tier one and some contact with our tier twos, because they open that awareness and that access to where to go on the ground. So close work with them. And again, coming back to that point I made before about going to them and not just saying, help us identify some farms and some farmers. Well, why are you doing it? So explaining very clearly why you're wanting to do it. In our case, it was to understand some of the challenges that can then input towards the future goals and efforts that we wanted to, as part of implementing programs there to help farmers and communities. So we did that. We identified, that Uttar Pradesh, I think, India is the largest supplier of natural mint. Uttar Pradesh is probably 90% of the volume in India. Uttar Pradesh, I think, is one of the biggest states. I think a population of 250 million, like
Yes, that's
a
very big India.
huge state. So again, even when you focus in on a state like UP, we needed areas to focus on as well. And that's where we narrowed in on some areas of UP where we could not, we had no traceability, so we could never directly link it to our supply chain. But of course, we could, when you hear from, a couple of hundred mint farmers in a particular region, this can provide a very clear proxy and a clear understanding of what the challenges are there that we could bring back into what we were doing. So yeah, we had to work really, through our partners to identify those locations on the ground, and then ultimately identify, well, who's going to go here on the ground and to be able to do this. And we were very quick to find you, Rishi, obviously based in market and having this awareness. But I'm not sure you'd ever worked on mint specifically before, so I think
I
this was a
didn't
great
actually.
learning for you
First
as
time.
well.
First time. Mint.
Yeah.
We've done other agriculture, commodities. We've done flowers, we've
Mm,
done, sugar, but this was like something new. And also, like, quite honestly, we being Indians, we did not know that there's so much mint grown in India, and this
mm,
mint plays such a big role in the international supply chain, and also
absolutely.
some of the product. We also did were like really surprised by the scale of it, and also like the spread of it, because Uttar Pradesh, as you said, is a big state, and how many
Mm,
people are involved in it. So this was quite interesting. And I think
yeah.
first project with you where we looked at some flavors. So, I also learnt about how this flavoring industry works and different kind of
Hmm.
flavors. Although
Yeah.
my knowledge is still very, very little, but at least I learned something new in
Yeah,
our work.
absolutely.
Our work still remains the same, whether we go to an electric vehicle factory or we go to a farm, our
Mm,
job is to talk to people, engage with them powerfully, and
yeah.
bring back their stories and challenges, which makes more sense in business systems, so that we
Hmm.
can take action on it, we can create systems on it, we can create more transparency in the supply chain. And some things are, quite difficult to solve, and some things are easier to solve. And I think one has to be appreciate the complexity of things.
Yeah, for
But
sure. And
reflecting
I
on
think,
what you said, there's one thing I want to share about suppliers. When I meet suppliers and they tell me something, many suppliers say the same thing. They say, when we do human rights due diligence, will we be heard in the system?
mm,
Will the companies look at the practicality and our solutions on the ground? But because there's always this, apprehension in the mind that, our Indian solution might be simple, might be more frugal, and they are very practical, no doubt. And sometimes they don't fit into the whole European and the British model of doing
mhm,
things on the ground, because of the two contexts are very different of these
mhm,
solutions. I think that's what suppliers normally ask us, and they work with us with open heart, with open arms, is only because of this assurance we give to them, is that we will hear
mhm,
you, we will look at things practically, we will take local culture into account, and
mm.
whatever we come out with as an action plan will be practical, will not be a pipe dream, will not be like
Yeah.
an aspirational thing. And I think
Hmm.
that gives them a lot of confidence to work with us. And
Yeah,
I can confidently say, all suppliers have engaged with us in a very open manner so that we can
mm,
build more sustainable, resilient supply chains in India.
I agree. And I think you touch on a really good point there. I think it's very easy to listen,
Mm,
but it's more challenging to really hear
mm,
what people are saying. And I think you really hear what people are saying that you're speaking to. No matter what the supply chain is, people want to tell you about their lives, tell
mm,
you about their challenges, tell you about opportunities. And I think you can listen to that, but do you truly hear it and really find those themes that a lot of people are saying? And, I think then taking practical steps to how those can be challenged.
mm,
Because I think some people, when you truly hear them, some people also have the solutions. They
mm,
know the solutions. They know how to get themselves through the solutions. Some people, you know, this is not a charity thing. People need to be empowered and people want to be empowered, but sometimes they just need some support in an area that you wouldn't think is an area that they needed, but something very simple can really unlock the solution
mm.
that people can work to. And yeah, I think we've really found that with working with you know the farmers in UP and different areas that they are really engaging, very happy people, and they are deeply focused on their faith. Their family is a huge thing, of course, family in India as well, and they want the best for their family, and any support that they can have to get better yield in mint, to reduce the costs that go into it. Anything like this is hugely helpful to them, and we've seen some really simple things that you can do to unlock some of the possibilities there. But only would we understand those things from truly having people like yourself and also our now partners and implementation partners on the ground who work very closely with farmers and the communities and really listen but hear what they're saying and hear what they need, and then bring that back to ourselves and the other partners to put that in place. So I think it's a great point that you make.
Yes, yes, no, because when I was in the UK and companies asked me, when I met company, they said we are having a very hard time working with our suppliers in India. And they asked me what are we missing, and my response has always been, we've had a great time working with suppliers in India, so certainly you're missing a point somewhere, because I've never felt any lack of commitment from our Indian colleagues and suppliers on the ground, and certainly they have a massive challenge in front of them, and also a very large complexity of just the land, in which this business operates. But I've never met a supplier who's not very confident, committed, wants to, create change on the ground. Uh, and it's just like being able to engage powerfully, as you said, bringing them along in the journey makes a very big difference. So I see many
Mm,
companies are making that probably mistake. They're missing out on that point of not instructing the Indian suppliers. And I've seen, I might say candidly that instruction thing hardly works with us Indians. So so and even I've said it so candidly, I think it still happens. But
mm,
bringing us along in the journeys works. I've seen another thing which happens is this country comparison which comes in to working with a similar company like yours, and they brought in names of other countries, as a comparison of what can be done and what cannot be done. And I think, eh, especially in the Indian context, it puts us off track, if that thing happens.
mm,
For example, we have a neighbor who's a very big country, almost equally complex, but the cultures of the two countries are very different. We're both in the East, so I
yeah.
think people assume that if you're in the East, then you might be in a similar thinking, in a similar culture. And I think that country comparison puts people off track here, and then it creates difficulties in the relationship. So that's another thing I've seen. Third thing I've seen is actually we have done some work with some other company, and yours also is about the training part of the human rights due diligence,
Mm.
and bringing to life, what does it really mean for a business? Because, I feel the information which is out there in the in the open space about HRDD is very technical. It's very,
Hmm.
it's written in a way which everybody can understand. Businesses sometimes struggle, to
Yeah.
understand what does it really mean for me, and how is it
Hmm.
different from an audit, or, and
Mm.
why am I supposed to do this? Like you said,
Mm.
Simon Sinek is the author of the book, Start with the Why. And so
Hmm.
that works a lot with Indians, especially Indian suppliers. And you said in the starting of our conversation, the moment they get themselves behind uh, change or implementation, then things will happen very fast, very
Yeah.
strongly, and you
Hmm.
can create the best partners in the world in India if you're able to get it right. And I'm also
Hmm.
saying, companies are experimenting in India and then using their learning to scale up other geographies, because they would have seen all the possible challenges in India. It's easier for them then to take that recipe and say, can we do this in some other parts of the world? So some
Yeah.
interesting thing. But this is great. I think you and I can go on forever. And
We probably could.
yeah, we have so much I would say experience of doing this on the ground. But I
Mm.
always feel this is a path where you and I are. It's we are very lucky that we got this opportunity to do
I
this kind of
agree.
work. But it's a
Hmm.
path of forever learning. The
Yeah.
more you learn, the more there is. And I think that is something I really appreciate. Both you and I are getting white hair. We are on the other side of our age. But I've
Hmm.
never seen any drop in my passion for doing things in my life. My soul is totally alive, and I think it's
Hmm.
all due to the work we are in, which helps us to engage with a lot of people. And
Absolutely.
you also shared with me you're also looking at expanding your life, and looking at new horizons as I would say.
Mm.
What are you thinking, planning? Is there something you would share? How you're opening up your life to these new realms?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, definitely. Looking to the future, um, the programs like the ones in India have been, such a passion of mine, such a proud moment that I can, you know, even if the world stopped now, I could look back on my career and say, I've made a small bit of difference to, you know, some people in a supply chain in this context in India. And I think I think it's about really truly following your passions, because like you said, your commitment and your engagement, as much as we're getting older, is one of the few things that's getting stronger. I would say so. I think you need to follow your passions, and that's definitely what I'm looking to do. I think I have a passion for supply chains, understanding, and I think there's a duty, and I think this is where one of the benefits of supply chain due diligence, human rights due diligence. It's also a way to, for companies, but I think people need to better understand where their products come from, the journey that it's taken to get there, the people that have been involved in that journey at each different stage, the environments that have been touched as well. Um, you know, we have a very convenient world now where you can order anything tomorrow and it arrives at your door, but that doesn't take away the fact that there's a long supply chain behind it that has some challenges and opportunities. So I'm definitely going to try and follow that passion to reveal more about supply chains to a wider audience, and also continue my work on some other supply chains where I can do similar things like we've done on Mint and other things like this, because that's truly where my passion is and what really really drives me. So not sure what that would all look like next, but yeah, after a bit of time and having a pause, as you talked about, which I know is very important in Sikh culture, is a moment for me to reflect and send myself in a different and exciting direction.
Yes, yes. No, we believe in three things which are very important for us. The truth in everything you do, and the exchange of truth, even in your conversations. And second is about being grateful in life. We've been blessed in many ways, but also taking a moment to appreciate those blessings
Yeah.
we have had. And the third is about contemplation, contemplating about what next and where do I fit in the larger plans
Mm,
of the universe. And we have a short life, whatever life we have been blessed with. And what is that I want to do with that life? And I came back actually from the UK. When I came back with a lot of inspiration. Thankfully, I had wonderful time there. I met
mhm,
people and did a lot of things there. But I came back with this whole aspect about sharing love, caring, and providing, listening to others in my life, and never giving up. These are the things I brought back.
mhm.
So I wish all of these for you as well. And in whatever you're going to
Thank
do
you.
next in your life and how your life is shaping up, I wish you truth. I wish you being grateful and contemplation in your life. And these pauses help us, I believe, that to re-energize ourselves and being able to do something new and different in our life. But a person like you has so much to offer and to contribute to this world. So here's wishing you all the power for doing that, Ben. And thank you for inspiring me in the work we do on the ground and being this real, light of hope in the world of supply chains. We need more leaders like you who really bridge the gaps, who really enable people on the ground, who work with suppliers and build relationships. So I really hope for more leaders to follow the path you have followed on.
Oh well, thank you so much. You're very kind. I feel very same back to you. It's been a pleasure working with Rishi. I I hope it's not the last time. We will obviously stay very well connected, and I'm sure I will need you in the future to
Anytime
help
in
me,
India,
even if it's
anytime.
with some just talking things through, or even to get your boots on. And I very much look forward to working with you in the future. And one of the really nice moments just to reflect on was when you're working on the India Mint project, and you were on the ground, and I received a nice WhatsApp photo from you where you're sitting on a tractor in a in an Indian field, which I know, of course, it's important work, but no reason why you can't have some fun at the same time. So yeah, saying back to you, I wish you all the best health for your family, for yourself, and for the work that you're going to continue to do and continue to support people. And I can only recommend you highly enough for anyone to use your experience and the way that you work so well and so respectfully with other people. This is a true way to build relationships and really make some big change. So wishing you the best from the UK
Thank you.
to
Thank you
India
very
as well.
much. Thank you, Ben. That's so nice of you. And hopefully we'll do a trip in India. Maybe, an open invitation to you. Whenever you want to come to India, you can always take a flight and come to Bangalore. And
Absolutely.
we could do some sightseeing around the lovely places in India, and maybe take you to some
Fantastic.
coffee plantation. Maybe that would be a different thing
That
from
would be very
what you have
interesting.
done, which is
I
not
didn't
too
even
far.
know there was coffee in India.
Oh, it's a
That's an
lot of
insight for me
coffee.
now.
It's a lot of coffee,
Wow.
especially where I am
Wow.
in the southern part of India, Bangalore.
Mhm.
Coffee is not too far away. There's a place known as Coorg, and where there's a lot of coffee comes. There's another place, Chikmagalur. But do come in. It's very nice to go and actually we can go and live in a coffee
Mm.
plantation, spend a couple of days there in the
Yeah.
plantation, and it's totally disconnected from the world. You are like you are in
Sounds
somewhere
good.
very isolated with wildlife as well, with elephants and other wild boar and sometimes leopards as well roaming around.
Wow, amazing. Well, maybe I'll bring my son. I'll
Why
drink the
don't you?
coffee and he can look at the animals. So that
Why
would be
it'll be
nice.
it'll be great. But here's wishing you the very best, Ben. What a pleasure talking to you. Thanks a ton,
You
and we
too.
look forward to your conversations. I'm sure you're also creating your own conversation. We look forward to that.
Thank you. Great to speak to you, Rishi.
Take care.
Take
Bye.
care. Bye bye.